Good morning and welcome to the Sabi Sands. Really looking forward to this morning's action, whatever it may be. We've been lucky in that my weather predictions for last night's rain were completely wrong and we didn't get anything. But we do have complete cloud cover. It's fully overcast and that makes for nice cool weather, which is a relief. We've had, especially yesterday, some scorching days. So looking forward to some cooler weather. And today we've got Alex in the final control and I'm teamed up with Brian on camera. And it's not a pleasant reminder, but there are only 8 drives left. So it is something that is worth knowing for all of you. And we're going to do our best to show you the most we can and as much as we can in these next 8 drives. So we shall continue and start this morning's quest. We've got no updates from the Djuma waterhole camera, and I'm guessing it could well just be myself out on the Djuma property this morning, unless one of the other vehicles from one of the neighboring properties decides to come across, but there was nobody yesterday, so that's also something that's important for you to know. It's just us out here searching this massive area for animals. And there's pros and cons to that. The positives are that, and not to be selfish, but we do have the whole place to ourselves. And if we do find any animals, we'll always be able to be in pole position, not having to share good spots or angles with other vehicles. So there is an advantage, but the trick is finding the animals in the first place, because usually when there are more vehicles, typically more animals get found and we update one another on the radio. So it's just an update on the kind of general movements of other vehicles on the area, and it is an important factor in the whole equation. Nice big herd of impala here, and they're all bundled up nice and close together, so this is a good opportunity to spend some time with them. To any new viewers, welcome on board. Welcome back. Oh, it's incredible how quick their reactions are. And it just takes one of them to get a little bit of a fright, and then it ripples through the rest of the herd. Copy, that's great news. Could you go again with which Zoomy that was? Okay, copy, thank you. Well, to Diane, who is one of our Zoomies, and for those of you who are unaware of what a Zoomie is, it's the person who controls the waterhole camera, which overlooks this waterhole that you may have seen a few glimpses of as we arrived in the sighting, the Djuma waterhole. And it's a live webcam that runs 24 hours a day, and it's actually positioned in this tree that Brian's going to show you now. It's directly on the other side of the tree. All you can see from here is the speaker that picks up the audio on the bottom right and an electrical box, but the actual camera's on the other side, and Zoomies have the ability to control this webcam from wherever they are in the world. It's a really cool opportunity for people, like I say, anywhere in the world to literally guide themselves and everyone who's watching the webcam through the waterhole and what's there. And Diane managed to find a leopard that came to the waterhole last night to drink, and it came from, Brian, if you don't mind, actually, because it'll be quite nice for me to show the people, and it's so wonderful that Diane's given us such accurate direction. So if you can see the road across there where the dam wall is, Brian, so the leopard came from the right hand side of the shot on that road that Brian's panning across to, and then drank somewhere possibly right there where we can see, and then I'm guessing it then crossed the dam wall towards us and then continued down to the right. There is another road that feeds down to the riverbed down that flows out of this waterhole. Alex, do you know what time that was? Sorry, I didn't copy what time that was last night. Alex is just double checking the time, but thanks so much for that update, Diane, and well done for spotting it. Okay. So it was about 6 or 7 hours ago, which, to put things in perspective, we got a report just a few days ago, it was on Monday morning, that a leopard had done the same thing. It had come and drank at the Djuma waterhole, and we were just 15 minutes behind it. They are so pretty, the impala. And a lot of the antelope, not just the impala, are really looking in tip-top condition at the moment. Oh, what a beautiful shot, Brian. Because it is the time of plenty for the herbivores, so they really are making the most of it. In terms of rain, this rainy season, we actually haven't got nearly as much as I'm used to receiving in this area. There could still well be a lot of rains to come, and I hope there are, because already the trees and a bit of the vegetation are beginning to wilt slightly. As I was saying though, before these impala decided to do this beautiful walk away from us, and Brian did a great job in capturing that moment, so well done, Brian. As I was saying, we got a report on Monday morning that a leopard was seen drinking at the waterhole, and we were just 15 minutes behind it, followed its tracks and didn't end up finding it that morning, but we did manage to find it in the afternoon, so still vitally important information that we received, and now we will do the same thing. Now, like I said, even though with a 15-minute head start the leopard managed to lose us, now we're facing a 6 or 7 hour head start, but in the same breath that leopard could have made a kill just 100 meters away, or have decided to sleep 100 meters away from here and not moved in the last 6 or 7 hours. It's not likely, but it's possible. So now, according to Diane, the leopard headed down in this direction, which is a road called Twin Dams Road, and it didn't necessarily come onto this road because I don't think she would. Oh no, it did. Well done, Diane. Thank you. And here the tracks are heading down the road, so we will continue to follow them and see where they take us. Although we may stop just here, as there's a young impala nursing. Excuse me. Oh, it's just finished. And it is probably getting to the stage that the lambs will be getting weaned off, and that mothers will tolerate less and less nursing. There's an oxpecker that's already come to search for breakfast. It's a bit early, I know. There's a beautiful butterfly that we're going to try and follow. It's fluttering quite slowly. And Brian will show you some shots of it. Private escort. It's a beautiful butterfly, and it might, if we're lucky, looking, bro.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Well done, well done. Something a little bit different, but it's just to be playing along perfectly with us, flying parallel. Well done, Brian. Well, good work. And that looks to be an African monarch butterfly, but there's another one that looks very, very similar to it. And that kind of mimicry is fairly common in the insect world, where one insect that is toxic or does carry toxic fluids in its body will be mimicked by other insects, that don't necessarily have those toxic fluids. And therefore any bird or animal that typically preys on insects will have learned that some bugs are tasty and others aren't, and then just assume that a similar looking one may be distasteful and or toxic. These leopard tracks look like large male east. So possibilities are quarantine, Nkuhuma, Mvula. Those are the three males we typically see around this area, and the butterfly is still fluttering around with us, but we got a question through from Rick and Susie in Hawaii. Morning, Rick and Susie, and welcome on board. I hope all is well in Hawaii. Rick and Susie are asking the average size of, or general size of, an impala herd, and it really does fluctuate on the time of year and the area that you're in. But in the Sabi Sands, I'd say your typical herd size is around 20 to 30 animals. At a guess. That's the average size we would see here, but sometimes herds congregate and join up in areas of good grazing and safety, so it does fluctuate. Okay, no more leopard tracks here. Just going to go ahead a little bit and double check the road ahead. Something important to take note of, as the drives do draw to a close, we may be seeing animals, especially the characters that we've got to know individually, we may be seeing them for the last time. We may never see them again, so it's not a happy thought, but it is something to remember. So any of the animals that we do see that you have become familiar with seeing, just bear in mind we may not see them again, and if we do, it may be the last time that we see them. So it's something that we were chatting about on the way into work this morning, and it's the harsh reality of things, but something worth taking note of. quite interesting. I'm not sure whether it's the same leopard, but we've been coming in a southerly direction, and now all of a sudden this leopard's veered back up this road, and you would have imagined it to have, if it had have taken that route, to have taken the first kind of fork, which would have glided off a bit more smoothly, but it's headed here and then recalculated and now headed kind of perpendicular to its original direction, which is just interesting. We're not sure what caused it, and I'm not sure necessarily if it is exactly the same leopard, because it appears to be coming from the opposite direction, but it could well just have altered course substantially. Just got a question through from, I think it's Chantal in Quebec. Good morning, and apologies if I got your name wrong, but you know who you are. And the question you've asked is a good one. It's Chantal's asked whether Mvula, who's the dominant male of this area and father of two-year-old males that we see, whether he will make space for either of his two sons and allow them into his territory, and he certainly wouldn't do that. And it wouldn't make sense for him to do that, because it would mean that he would be allowing competition in, because they will become competition as soon as they sexually mature. And in terms of genetics, it makes far more sense for them to get as far away from here as possible to prevent them mating with their sister or even their mother in years to come. So it's not likely that that would happen, but strange things do happen out here, so we'll just have to keep in touch with the guides, and even just the waterhole camera will provide us with intelligence knowing whether or not Nkuhuma or Quarantine are still in this area. So that's something that in the coming months we'll be able to keep us updated on their movements. No, I haven't, no, they're still going. Hadn't seen his tracks for a while, so I was wondering what was going on, but they do continue. Maybe we'll find him sleeping up in a marula tree in the Quarantine clearings. Oh. Some zebra and wildebeest. We'll go and have a look at and then return to the tracks. This is interesting. His tracks, or a leopard's tracks, are now coming from where that wildebeest was standing on the road towards us. So it's interesting how these tracks are working out, but he could well have headed into this clearing, tried to catch something, failed, and then continued in the direction he was initially heading, because for him to have come here, if it is the same leopard, which it could well be, he would have again altered course quite drastically. There's an interesting marking on this zebra. Which ones are you on there? Those two there. Okay. Oh. The one that I wanted to show you is now just turned around. It had a very interesting blub of a stripe. And it is interesting how the stripes are so different from animal to animal. And if you look closely at a certain body part and then take a screenshot in your memory and then move across to the next zebra and do the same thing, you would be able to see how different they actually are. The one on the left now has the funny blob pattern. There it is. Almost semi-Africa shaped. But it is a very unique short stripe for that part of the body. So again, just interesting, and now that the other one's directly behind it, you can see how different the stripes are on that certain part of the body. A very unique blob. There were also some giraffe tracks heading down towards this area that we saw on our way in this morning, so that's good prospects that we may see some more giraffe. Interesting. I expected his tracks to come down this road. It's not far from this junction. They were heading straight here, but like I said, he could well have got caught up in some hunting opportunities back in those clearings. There's no sign of him coming down here, and I just wanted to double check a fair distance down the road. To see if he may have been walking parallel to it or alongside it and then come back onto it, but he doesn't appear to have come this way and may have headed further down into the quarantine clearings. Okie dokie. So, they should head down this road here now. Yeah, here he goes. I think he's scent marked in this bush here on our left. You veered off down a small track that runs to the left of us here. It just does peter out into nothing in the end. This was definitely his general movement of direction, so we'll carry on down here and see if we don't come up with anything. There's a riverbed where they like to spend a lot of time quarantine, and Nkuhuma, even Mvula's been seen down there. So even as cubs, I remember Mark telling me that they used to spend a lot of time down here. I think his trucks have popped back out onto the road here. Dwarf mongoose playing in this hole in the tree to our left. Might be worth sneaking up on. If we just wait a second, or two, we may see a few dwarf mongooses, rather, appearing from the cavity in this tree, as they are quite inquisitive, and will no doubt come back out to inspect the vehicle if we're just a little bit patient. Oh, I saw some movement. There it is. Its head's poking up in the top right, top dark section there. Okay. There you go. Hello. Good morning. Thanks for coming back out. They often live in termite mounds and excavations in the ground, burrows in the ground, but we'll also use dead trees as dens or hideouts. Oh, there's another one. And another. You wonder how many are hiding in this tree. Maybe 10 waiting in queue to get out, going, what's the hold up, guys? We're hungry. So We'll give it a few more moments and then let them start their day out foraging for mainly insects, but small rodents, small snakes will also certainly be on the menu. Does this remind you of your meerkat work, Brian? To a degree.
Yeah. I've never seen a mongoose in a tree.
Yeah, it's a good spot, this. The nice thing about stopping at a time like this when we know we are in the vicinity of a leopard or any predator is that we may be alerted by alarm calls of other animals to the whereabouts of that predator. So there are benefits to just stop and wait and listen every now and then, and also enjoy these little dwarf mongoose. But I will double check here to just make sure he hasn't stayed on the road. Not looking promising. It's a difficult patch of road this to see tracks on. Many members of the Nkuhuma Pride together actually in all my time here, so a really special sighting for me. Was that an impala that just alarm called, or was it a bird?
No, it was an impala.
Something like it could have been an impala alarm call nearby, and there's often game in this area that we're in. And it just goes to show how important teamwork is out here, because we may never have made it to this area or found any tracks of these animals this morning. So a big thank you to Andrew who gave us a call. It does sound like a bird actually that's calling. I think it's a lilac-breasted roller that we got confused with for the impala alarm calling. Now, even though they're asleep now, and they could well sleep the rest of the day, they're not exceptionally full-bellied. And because we don't see lion very often, it would be very nice to spend some time with them, and the longer we spend with them, the more likely it is that we will see them doing something. So, great prospects for this morning, and hopefully this afternoon even. We are close to our southern boundary here, very close, probably just a few hundred feet away. So lucky that they decided to come slightly south as opposed to north. Sorry. Just doing a little video here. Me and Brian and my pole went into the shot there. Apologies for that. But really trying to get as much footage as I can now that things are drawing to a close. And very lucky because we've got some wonderful subjects this morning. Oh, how many are here? 1, 2. There's 2 that look like they're probably maybe 7 or 8 months old. Maybe a little bit older than that. So 2 of us very similar size. And then definitely 1 young male. And what look like 4 or 5 potentially adult lioness, but hard to say. That is an impala. It's not a lilac-breasted roller, and it's obviously been alarm calling for a while, and I just actually did see it wag its tail through some bushes. No, not far off, but interesting that the lion are paying no interest whatsoever to them. They may have had a failed attempt at catching them, and now that they've lost the elements of surprise, they've given up, because without the elements of surprise, it's almost impossible for any predator to bring down its prey. Anyway, back to the total of lions that we can see here. If you haven't counted yet, I've only just got round to it. So it's 2 youngsters and 5 quite large lioness, it looks like, and 1 young male that looks like he could be coming on 2 years of age roughly. So 8 of them in total that we can see here. It's incredible how animals that can be so fierce can also be so loving and gentle. And they're not just fierce with other animals, they can be ferocious amongst one another. And if you put all these lions now on an impala kill, you would hear a lot of growling, and there would be a lot of stray paws being flung through the air towards one another, jostling to try and get into the best position and to feed on as much as they can, so they will turn on one another when there's food around, as one example. But right now, as you can see, they couldn't really be much more affectionate with one another, these 2. I wonder which one's more comfortable. I think I would like to be the one on the right with my feet up, if I could choose. You wonder what it is that tired them out last night. It would be so interesting to follow them through the night, because that's when they are most active. But to do that without affecting them, we would need to have some great infrared or night vision equipment, because as soon as you start following animals at night with the use of spotlights, it does make it difficult as soon as anything exciting happens. Because if, for example, a pride of lion or leopard come across some potential prey, you can't shine on the prey because you'll be blinding the prey with the spotlight. therefore making it easier for the lion. And you can't shine on the lion because then you'll give away their position to the prey. Therefore you need to switch off all the lights and sit there in darkness until you hear kind of running, and then you can turn on the lights and hope to get the last parts of a chase. But very difficult at night to follow them without affecting the situation. But I'm hoping in the future, if there are future projects, we will incorporate that kind of technology and that kind of a plan into the Safari Live experience, because it would allow us to show you some really interesting behavior and activities, and the activities that make them tired. So as opposed to watching them sleep, we could actually watch them in action, which would be a pleasant change of scenery. We have seen them sleeping a lot this season, and we typically do in summer during the daylight hours. In winter they are more likely to be active during the day. Go ahead with your question, Alex. Kathy in Tennessee, good morning and welcome. Yes, you're correct. The noise you can hear in the background is impala alarm calling. Initially, when I heard the first few calls, I wasn't entirely sure, and I thought it could have been a lilac-breasted roller that actually makes a similar noise. Slightly similar. Very slightly similar. But they are certainly impala. I have seen a very brief glimpse of them just wagging their tails, but it's very thick where they are, but not far from these lion. And I did mention earlier, you may have just joined a little bit later, that they could well have, these lion could well have tried to catch these impala on their way through to this point and failed. And once you've blotched an attempt and they know you're around as a predator, your chances of catching them basically drop to zero. The element of surprise is critical. This is the young male who's just lifted his head up, and you can see the mane developing. And as I did mention earlier, probably around 2 years of age. I don't know the exact dynamics of this pride. Like I say, this is the first time I've seen them actually all together. I've seen 3 lionesses from this pride on one occasion together, but sadly the vehicle I was on didn't have any broadcast signal from where we were, so Hayden came over and took over that sighting, because his vehicle did pick up signal there, and he did actually manage to see them stalking some inyala. It was a great sighting, but that was months ago. And then I think the most recent time I saw some of them, I think it was just 2 lioness. Now that male's just looked at some impala that are behind us. That's exactly what he's honed in on. And I've just looked back and I can see a small herd of impala moving actually in this direction. And if we just get a few more members of this pride to see, they may take this opportunity, even though you may ask yourself there's impala just behind them that are alarm calling, but therein lies the problem. Those impala know that these lion are here, whereas the ones that are approaching from the north don't. So there's a small chance that we could see some action at this stage, but far too early to predict that. So yeah, the most recent time I saw these animals, I think, was, oh, wonderful. Is he going to show some initiative here in a potential hunt? Or is he just going to go and flop down underneath another bush? I think we might get lucky. Now the problem is the impala that are approaching, that don't know about these lion necessarily, will have heard the audio of these other impala alarm calling, so they will be on high alert. But when there's this many lion around, if they do spread out now and create a bit of chaos and cause these impala to run around, because they do have these numbers, there's a chance an impala could run into the wrong lion or into the wrong place where there's a lion waiting in ambush. If lion only slept kind of 20 meters apart, creating almost a net, so that if animals do walk past, they are naturally almost pre-set up in a hunting position. Whereas by lying all clustered like this, if anything does approach, they don't necessarily have time to spread out. So it's an interesting thing that certainly helps the predators, and if the lion weren't so affectionate with one another, they'd probably be able to make more kills. Like I said, they'd be almost always ready in a position to start encompassing prey. And that's, I guess, what he's done now, but he would need to go a lot further away in order to try and be able to chase impala towards these animals, because right at the moment they're just too close to one another. But it's good signs. There's also other members of the pride lifting up their head now and beginning to yawn, so maybe they'll get up for us. Looking very good. Lions are waking up. Just got a question from Dennis asking if the lion will make a kill if an easy opportunity presents itself, and they certainly will, and I think this is what we might be seeing here. Lions on the move. Wonderful. So 5 minutes ago you wouldn't have predicted this, but like I said, it's by spending time with these animals that you just increase your chances greatly of seeing any action, and they are hungry. They certainly are not looking remotely full-bellied, and this is just what we want, because it means that we may be able to see some of this action that is so rare to see. This cub may attempt or start sharpening its claws or doing some claw maintenance on this tree before the hunt. And that cub's probably not going to contribute too greatly to the whole hunt if they do decide to continue hunting, which it does look like they may be interested in doing, and it's almost through some form of telepathy that they communicate with one another and coordinate these hunts. But I may be getting a little bit too excited here, and they could well flop down at any stage, having just simply repositioned. Oh, they already appear to be flopping themselves down. Well, they may have flopped themselves down, but at least they did get up for us. You may have noticed the impala's alarm calls appear to have intensified since the lions got on the move, and that's understandable. Not sure what our best option is here, but I'm trying to go all the way around them, try and get a better angle, and that way we might also be able to get a visual of these impala alarm calling to show you what it all looks like. You've certainly heard it enough times now, so maybe we can show you one performing this nasal snort. High alert. Come on, let off one more alarm call for us. No. It's bizarre how they all decided to get up and just move such a short distance. It's not like the sun's coming out or they're in a cooler spot there. Here comes the young male, so hopefully we'll be able to see some more greetings and affection. Oh, there we go. Maybe it's him who's trying to excite the team and get them going on a hunt, as he was the first one to get up. A useful member to have in their pride, this young male, because in the coming months, before he does get kicked out by the territorial males, he will contribute largely to hunting, especially the bigger game, or bigger prey like buffalo. I'm not sure what this pride of lion do take down predominantly, as we've hardly seen them. So you will typically find that prides do sometimes begin to almost specialize in certain prey depending on how many mouths they have to feed, how much strength they have within the pride, and also, of course, depending on what potential prey items are available to them. So sadly we don't know too much about them because we haven't seen much of them, but he certainly will contribute, this young male. At least now they are in a much better spot that if anything does walk past, they do have a little bit of cover, whereas where they were earlier, they would have been spotted from a mile off And it is quite often that lion and leopard will get opportunities to make kills from prey stumbling upon them, as opposed to the lion actually being on the move and creeping up to the prey. Sometimes it works the other way around and the prey simply stumble upon the lion. There's quite a few questions coming through asking why birds are alarm calling even though the lion don't necessarily pose a direct threat to them, and it's a good point and interesting how various animals will alarm call even though there's no direct threat posed to them by the lion. And the same happens with leopard, and I guess it's kind of just a community watch, you could almost say, that all the prey items stick up for one another and keep an eye out. There haven't been birds alarm calling at these lion though. When I mentioned that I thought the lilac-breasted roller was calling, it was just its call, it's not an alarm call. So there actually haven't been any birds alarm calling at these lion this morning. And the calls you can hear are simply the birds singing out their morning chorus. That's a woodlands kingfisher. Chick, brrr. Well, difficult to decide what to do now, because there could be other things going on out there, and we could fairly safely assume that these lion will still be here this afternoon, but it's not guaranteed, and it will be this afternoon if they are here that the probability of seeing them on the move would be greatly increased. But then again, if we leave them and something does stumble upon them, we don't see anything. So it's a tricky one for me. But we'll give it a few more moments because they are still milling about.
We'll get rain.
That is a good point, Brian.
There's wind picking up.
Sorry, Alex, if you could just go again with the name, please. Just got a question through from Diane in Port Byron. Good morning, Diane, and welcome. Diane's noticed that the two smaller cubs have got large swollen elbows, and she's asked whether this is a sign of bovine tuberculosis, and it certainly is a sign of that. Most of the lions, or almost all of the lions within the Kruger Park, have got this TB that they contract from buffalo. And when animals are slightly weaker, they show more signs of this TB, and these cubs are obviously having to compete with larger animals to get food, and therefore possibly aren't getting as much, or certainly won't be getting as much food as the adults within the pride, and therefore may be showing these signs of TB more prominently than the adults, who are going to be getting more food at the kills and therefore going to be in better condition. So, well, a good observation, Diane, and well pointed out. If prides do go through a tough time and hunting becomes difficult and they get into fights potentially and lose body condition, then the TB can really take power of them and take over and cause prides to die out. But it doesn't happen very often. And it's something that I've very seldom seen. I've only seen photos of a specific pride where I used to work that used to have, I think, 15 members, or 20 members. It was a large pride, and TB took hold and they all started withering away. It was terrible to see pictures of these really thin, emaciated lion, but it's one of those things that happens out here, and thankfully it doesn't seem to affect them too negatively on the whole. An emerald spotted wood dove's calling. When it calls again, I'll point it out, but it sounds like a doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Here it goes. A really pretty call made by a very pretty bird, the little emerald spotted wood dove. We've been able to get one or two good glimpses of them over the past few months, but they are fairly shy and secretive and also small. So unless we're close, it's difficult to really examine and understand their full beauty. Okay, well, I think we do a loop around and come back and have a look at them and see if anything's changed a bit later. And we'll also see how much closer these impala that were approaching them have got to. A weaver's nest just south of Gowrie, Main. Okay, copy, thanks. I just want to go follow up around Twin Dams. Andrew had a brief glimpse of a leopard heading south from the break towards Twin Dams. I think we're going to have a quick snoop around there. Actually, do this the other way around. I'd like to go and check Twin Dams, which isn't far from here. There was a report of a young male leopard being seen by the same guide that managed to find these lion, and I think he was following the lion tracks and saw the leopard and actually just left the leopard and continued following the lion tracks. So we can head into that area, have a look around. What I should pull. Just going to drop a branch on the road here, so that if any other game viewers do want to come and have a look at these lion, they have a good clear indicator. Now there was a herd of impala that appeared to be moving in this direction, but they may have veered off course due to the alarm calls they heard coming from this area, from the other impala. I just want to double check that they haven't made an error and headed towards these lion. No, they're still all here. They're still in the area. Prospects for later. So we are going to be approaching Twin Dams from the north, and the leopard was approaching Twin Dams from the south, so heading in a northerly direction. And I'll let you know as soon as we've turned onto Twin Dams. Basically anywhere from now we could potentially bump into this leopard. It was seen a fair time ago, so if it has been on the move non-stop, it could well be anywhere where we are now. But the chances will increase, I think, as we get a little bit further ahead, or become more likely. And I'm guessing, it's just a guess, that it could be quarantine. And it would be great to see him, because I haven't seen him for a long time. Not sure when last it was, but I can't even remember. That's for kind of two reasons. It almost becomes one long safari blur for me in terms of sightings and different animals that we've seen. And it's also, I think, contributed to the fact that it's almost like we have 2 days in 1 year, because we get kind of, well, at least I speak for myself, I get my daily allowance of sleep in 2 intervals, one at night and one during the day between game drives. Basically half and half, 3.5 hours, 4 hours each session. So you almost wake up to 2 mornings or 2 days in 1 day, 2 days rather, and that also makes Makes it difficult for the old filing cabinets upstairs. Either way, I think it's quarantine. And it would be great to see him. So, this is Twin Dam Roads that we've just turned onto. It's about 3/4 of a mile, half a mile from here until we get to the dam where he was last seen heading towards. Okay, so he's already walked on along this road and he's heading up in that direction, so he's come past the dam, and I probably should have stopped at that other road junction where we turned onto Twin Dams in order to see if he hadn't passed by already. Either way, at least we know where he's heading. Interesting. I think he could have peeled off this road onto a small 2-track that cuts down into a riverbed here, so we'll head down there. So I'll make sure I haven't missed his tracks, but I don't think I have. No sign of him here. I'm guessing he may have popped into the riverbed, which would be a move that I'm happy with, because I've been desperate to see a leopard and to show you a leopard in this big riverbed that we have, the Mulwati riverbed. I've just seen a truck here, so I may have popped back onto this road after all. There's tracks of another leopard heading down in this direction, which doesn't add up. And I'm just going to double check behind me over here quickly and find out if there are some tracks that head down into the riverbed. That wasn't as productive as I hoped it would be. Hard to establish what's going on with these tracks, but there have been leopard looking about here. Even on the riverbed along this road, that's not to say they didn't move in this area. So we should on the riverbed, and if the signal does cut out, I apologize, but it should come back fairly shortly, so don't go anywhere. It's so pretty in the bed. Copy, thank you. Apparently the signal's holding out down here, which is great. We just got a question through for Brian, and I'll relay it quickly so that you all know what it was. It's asking whether Brian is nervous when I get off the vehicle to go and look for tracks. So Brian?
Never. Vehicle safe. When you're on the vehicle, you're very safe.
That's a good point that Brian has just made, and he is correct. When you're on the vehicle, the chances of something going wrong are very slim. Although, as you are all well aware, it can happen, and did happen not so long ago. But like Brian says, the vehicle is a very safe place to be, and animals are used to seeing people on these vehicles time and time again, never posing threat to the animals, so feeding them, so really fitting into an interesting kind of neutral point. In the kind of ecosystem here. Oh no, there's leopard tracks in the riverbed here, so leopard did walk down this track. It's actually heading in this direction, so there's tracks going up and down all over the show here of leopard, and there could be some interesting dynamics, I guess, potentially between the young males. Mvula, even Karula, their mother, will be wanting to see less and less of them. So there could be some interesting disputes going on between the family members, and I think that would maybe explain why there are tracks heading up and down them. hard to establish what's going on exactly. Certainly be wonderful to see any interaction between any of the leopard here. So, might be worth us doing one more drive through that general area, and then we'll head back to the line and see what they're up to, and see if anything's changed there. So that is the game plan. And what is important to mention, and I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again, while we're driving around looking for animals, we bump into anything when we do, in terms of not necessarily the animal we're looking for. And when those opportunities do present themselves, we'll stop and enjoy them. But without investing time in looking for these rare animals, we'll not be able to show them to you. So, well, not rare animals, but harder to find animals like the leopard. There was a brief glimpse that Andrew did have of this leopard, and may have misidentified it. Looking at these tracks, to me it looks like it could be a female leopard. So hopefully Karula, because we've hardly seen her of late. Sorry again with the name. Oh, a giant leopard tortoise. Here's a monster. Maybe stop here because it looks like he's already trying to perform the great escape. I wonder if he was drinking here at this mud wallow. Could have been. So we didn't find a leopard, but at least we found a leopard tortoise.
It's a good start. It's promising.
It is a good start.
Halfway there.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, he is a trophy specimen. Really big one. At least that is for this area. In the Western Cape they get considerably larger. There's another little road here that I think he's going to cross potentially. It's such long grass that not going to be easy. Incredibly strong animals. To drag themselves through all this undergrowth requires some impressive strength. Hold on there, Brian. Leopard tracks everywhere. Every road we turned on there appeared to be different leopard tracks, but no leopards. The tracks that I just saw here were heading out of this riverbed, not down inserts. And it's hard to make sense of what's going on with these tracks, but at least there's a lot of leopard moving through the area. Well, not necessarily a lot of leopard, but at least there's been a high leopard activity in the area last night. It could be one or two individuals that have just covered large tracts of land. Just got a question through from Cindy asking whether there's hierarchy. Good morning, Cindy. Asking whether there's hierarchy amongst the lioness within a pride, and there certainly is. There'll be one or potentially even two females that are more likely to get the pride going, and when they get up, the rest of the pride will follow. And also just at any of the kills, there will be certainly a specific hierarchy in that the biggest, strongest lioness will get into the best position. And that usually, like I say, comes with size and strength, but as well as a combination of age and wisdom. Okay, well, no luck with the leopard, sadly. It is a difficult thing following up on tracks when you don't have time and the ability to spend prolonged periods on foot. And that is why all the game viewers here do have trackers on their vehicles, so that they can drop a tracker on tracks and leave them to concentrate on slowly trying to find out where they go. Whereas for us, a little bit more tricky, so we'll move out of that area for now, head back towards where the lion are and see if there have been any changes there. As just mentioned, that she's loving all the different shaped trees, and we are really lucky. There's an incredible variety of really pretty trees in this area, and what I'll do is I'll stop and point out standouts for you, Doris, considering you are enjoying them, and I'm sure a lot more viewers out there are also enjoying the scenery. And what's nice about scenery is that it's always here. So, unlike lion or leopard that may evade us, the scenery here is always magical. And in its own right, it does vary from different times of the day, different sunlight, different angles. So, it can vary even though it is a fixed inanimate object. Well, here's a pretty tree. Oh no, is that the one? No, it's a little bit further ahead, I think. The one I was hoping to show you. And it's an interesting one because Nkuhuma actually had us kill up this specific marula tree. And it is a pretty one, as they all are. But as Brian zooms in, and hopefully my monitor works, you'll see a marula tree, and it was in one of the forks of that tree that Nkuhuma was found with a leopard, with an impala kill, and we enjoyed some good sightings there from this marula tree. Really enjoying this cool weather this morning. It's so much more pleasant out here, although as I said that I thought I felt a raindrop. And there's quite a dark cloud above us. I think we may maybe starting to get a little bit of drizzle, but should be okay for now. Too soon to panic. Copy, thank you. So, just over an hour to go. What I'm going to do to continue Doris's topic of trees is I'm going to stop, find a tree, and have a little competition to see who can identify it. So get ready, dust off your filing cabinet that has all the tree knowledge in it, and let me this should do. There's a few good characteristics here. So Brian can pan up this tree slowly. The key indicating feature that Brian would have passed at the base of the tree, which will help you to identify it. So what you can see here is useful information, and as he continues to pan up towards the leaves, you'll continue to get some useful information. You'll notice a few changes along the way, and if you can try and pick some leaves that are closest to us, try and get tight on to give you an idea of what kind of a leaf the tree has, because that's also important when identifying trees. So well done, Brian, and here you've got a good idea of the shape of the leaves, and they are a very distinctive shape. And I'll give you a clue that does help remember this tree, is that they do have almost Mickey Mouse shaped ears, Mickey Mouse ear shaped leaves. If you obviously swivel the leaves around, they're often hanging upside down, you can kind of see that Mickey Mouse ear shape. So send your answers through to to Alex in final control, and the winner of this competition will get never-ending rights to be able to hug this tree when you're ever here. So free hugs from this tree all day, every day. You just have to get here, and then the tree is yours. But for hugging only, you can't take it away. You could climb it, I guess, but not the best tree for climbing.
Not for this competition, though. Terms and conditions apply.
Terms and conditions apply. Okay, well, the impala, we've already got an answer through from D. Hodgkins on Twitter. Oopsie. Sorry, D. Hodgkins, you're wrong. It's not a marula tree, and I'm hoping some of you took screenshots of that, and then you'll be able to look at it closely and compare it to a marula tree that I'll show you. Here the impala, they haven't moved. They were heading towards the line a little bit earlier, and now we'll continue on to the line, which are not too far from here. Jennifer in New York said a leadwood tree. Whoops, also not a leadwood, sorry. Closer than the marula though, Jennifer. It's not easy, especially not being out here, but keep trying. I'm hoping somebody's going to get it right. If not, what I'll do is I'll show you a marula and a knobthorn, and a leadwood tree, and that way you'll be able to compare between the different types, and that will hopefully be able to learn for the future. A few more little droplets of drizzle are coming down. And the lion are still fast asleep. And these two impala, I think the two that were alarm calling earlier, have come back to keep a close eye on them. And it does make sense, rather than fleeing into the unknown, rather stay with what you know and keep an eye on it. who was the last person, Alex? Sorry. I'm not copying the first part of your messages. Well done. We have a winner, and it's Bob on Twitter with the knobthorn tree. So well done, and I'll talk you through the characteristics now. So if there are any screenshots of that knobthorn tree, the things to look out for are, firstly, the Mickey Mouse shaped ears, which would have been hard to see, I understand, but there you would have been able to notice that. So quite a small roundish leaf that's coupled together when there are two next to one another, as they often do grow. They look like the shape of a Mickey Mouse ear. Then the fact that the base of the tree had been completely stripped of its bark was also a good indicating feature, because the knobthorn trees are attacked heavily by elephants and often have the bark stripped. So that's why I asked Brian to start at the base of the tree and work his way up, and you would have noticed that the tree was smooth on the bottom half, on the side that we were facing, and then the regular rough bark continued higher up. So those are two of the main indicating features. The marula tree, if they do have bark stripped off them, it's typically in more of a patch, and it doesn't peel off big long pieces. As the knobthorn bark peels off, the marula bark kind of chips off or breaks off, more difficult for the elephants to get off. And the bark itself, when it hasn't been chipped off, is very mottled in coloration, so you'll have blacks and whites and greys and browns, lots of different kind of puzzle pieces making up a mosaic of different colors. And the leaves will be considerably larger, almost 4 or 5 times the size of those knobthorn leaves. The leadwood tree, which was the other example, has very distinctive puzzle piece, highly ridged bark, that you can almost see, like I say, individual puzzle pieces, and quite rectangular in shape often, those puzzle pieces, very straight angles and lines in the ridges of the leadwood bark. Okay, well, I think this afternoon it is for these lion, because they seem really well bunkered down, and I think we could use this last hour to go look for something that's a little bit more lively. I also do want to potentially get a little bit closer towards camp, in case, in case this rain does start getting any heavier, we're not stranded too far away. Much needed moisture for this area. We, as I mentioned earlier, haven't had as much rain as I would have expected we would have had by now, which has been great from a broadcasting point of view. It certainly has, because we have been relatively unaffected by the rain relative to how badly I thought we were going to be affected by it. Okay, so Brian, if you don't mind, actually, I want to find, what I want to do is try and find the ideal opportunity to be able to compare two trees next to one another, because when you can see them right next to one another, it becomes a lot easier to notice the differences. Okay, here's a good example, I think. We'll try this out. Sorry, I'm just going to get right in between them, the two of them, Brian. Apologies. Okay. So, on our left-hand side, we have the marula tree. Now, we'll start at the base and work our way up. Notice the bark. It's not very deeply ridged, but you can almost see individual pieces, and it is very mottled in appearance. There's some dark pieces, some light pieces, not deeply ridged. No insects are going to be able to really hide in those gaps or cracks within the bark. So that's one way of kind of thinking in terms of depth of ridges. And then again, highly mottled in coloration the whole way up, and it varies from tree to tree. Then the horizontal branches. Once we start getting up into the canopy, very distinctive, comfortable horizontal branches on which we see leopard perched the majority of the time. They are up a tree, they are up one of these. That's a broad spectrum. And then if you could try and zoom into some of the leaves, the closest leaves, maybe these ones on the left here would be the best. Well, you can see quite a few useful pieces of information here. The fruits, the regular leaf-shaped leaf, so it's fair to say that's a kind of standard leaf shape. Also, it's difficult to see, but you may be able to notice the terminal branches of a marula tree are very thick. So, my monitor's flashing on and off here, so I'm battling to see, but you can see that where those branches end, they are very thick and almost finger-like, whereas often trees taper off into very thin terminal branches, whereas these, which you can see from the shot, all finish relatively thick. Now, on our right-hand side, we are going to move across to a knobthorn tree. And again, an iconic tree of this area. They are very often the dead trees that we see in this area. And just notice now the bark difference. Deeply ridged. The bark is often the part of the knobthorn tree that does have the large knobs on it, causing it to get its name. This one doesn't, that we can see here. But very deeply ridged bark. It doesn't have a mottled appearance to the degree that the marula does, and any of the mottled colors you are seeing are often lichens, not the actual bark coloration itself. And then we are quite far away, but you'll notice a distinctive difference in leaf size. These are much smaller, and I wonder if there's a small one nearby. There should be, but I could just break some of these Mickey Mouse ears off to show you. I'll find another knobthorn as we're driving on and show you the Mickey Mouse shaped ears, because it's difficult from far. But now that you have been able to see two trees being compared immediately against one another, you may notice also no horizontal branches there, not nearly to the degree that the branches are horizontal in this marula tree. So just the shape alone can help you. And then one last tree is the dead one directly in front of us, which Brian will go back to once he's finished with the living knobthorn. He's taken you across now to a dead knobthorn. Again, a very typical tree. Ooh, excuse me, got the sneezes here. But we very often see dead knobthorn trees, them and leadwoods. Now, It's difficult to compare the two, but basically the difference between a dead knobthorn and a dead leadwood is that a dead leadwood tree would typically be more aesthetically pleasing to look at than a knobthorn. It's more flowing and more curvy with regards to the shapes, but difficult to tell. Anyway, that is the tree talk for today, and I hope it gives you, those of you who did put through your answers, just got a question through from, I think it's Beth in Boston, and morning Beth, welcome on board. She's brought up a good point, asking whether marulas or female marula trees are the only ones to bear fruits, and they certainly are. So the males will not have fruits on them. Now, one last tree, and it is going to be nice just to finish this one off, because it was the third and final guest that came through. So we've covered the marula, which was the first guest, and the second guest was the leadwood tree, and this is a leadwood tree here. Again, it's got very distinctively different bark to both the knobthorn and the marula, and you can see the individual puzzle pieces that are often kind of rectangular in shape and very straight angles. And this is a living one, but you can see the kind of cryptic flowing shape that makes them so beautiful, and especially when they die, they leave beautiful landmarks dotted through the bushveld. For hundreds of years, these trees can stand after they've died. The wood is incredibly strong and hard, and nothing can really chew through it. So that was the leadwood tree, and I hope you've all got a slightly better idea of the differences between them now. Drizzles a very fine mist at the moment, so not causing any issues yet, but Brian may have to wipe the camera at some stage if it does continue, just to let you know. Just one section of riverbed that we haven't driven down, and that would kind of complete to search the potential areas closest to the Lipper Trap. So we'll drive through there and head up towards the waterhole. There was reports of an elephant up in that area, so we can maybe find him. It was a while back that I got that report from Alex, but we can still head into that general area and going on. The signal does seem to be really good this morning. We may go through a few sticky patches, so don't go anywhere. It will not take long before we're out of here. Got a question asking whether many monkey orange trees grow in the area, and they do. A lot of green monkey oranges that we get here, but they don't get very big because the elephants keep them small. So there's those, and there's also the black monkey orange, but not as common as the green monkey orange. So there are a few, and if I see any, I will certainly show them to you. Show them to you. Another question from Joellen on Twitter asking if there's any invasive species of trees, and there are some. The lantana is one that grows, gets transported along the rivers that causes problems along a lot of the main rivers. So that lantana camara, I think it is a problematic alien. And even the blackjacks that we get in quarantine, and I always get this name mixed up, the Vinolias or Verolias, those red flowers. I don't think those belong here either. So there are a few invasive species of trees in the area, but thankfully nothing very drastic, and not to a degree that anything is actually done to curb them or try and slow them down. That is, although I think with lantana it's different. I think lantana they do try and target to get rid of, but it's, like I say, it's not a huge problem here at the moment, and whether it's a little bit of neglect or simply people have looked into it properly and everything is under control. And a lot of the time the problem with any pests or aliens, be it animals or plants, is once they are in an area, to get them out you may have to cause greater damage to other parts of the environment by the pesticides or poisons, whatever you're using to get rid of them, that it may not be worthwhile. But no, thankfully there's not a large problem from alien invasive species of plants out here. Jacob. Thanks, Alex. Well, thanks for all the kind words for Brian's camera work and the little explanation on the different trees that we had a look at, the little quiz we had. So really glad you enjoyed that, and thanks for the positive feedback. Get ready for a bird on the left here, Brian, please. It was a little sparrowhawk, it looked like, a really cool little raptor. But it took off before we could get even remotely into position. Good morning, gentlemen. It's when they're lying in these little wallows, pools of water, and you're walking around that you wouldn't be able to see them until you're very close. And when I am off on foot, this is what I am most worried about coming across. These big old buffalo bulls. Just want to give them a little bit of space here so that we don't alarm them too much, because we already caused them to get out of their little mud wallow there, which was kind of unavoidable because I couldn't have stopped any further away. I guess I could have carried on driving, but my immediate reaction was to stop to show you, and sadly that startled them a little bit. Which one are you on, Brian? Okay. And it is common for the buffalo to adorn their horns and polish them up, and you can actually see there's quite a lot of dried out bark that has got caught in its horns that have gone a slightly brownish color, and when they do continue to do it like this and get some fresh tannins and reddish tannins on their horns, it really does look impressive. And sometimes, like just now, I think we've seen he's got one branch stuck behind his ear, and it almost looks like he's wearing a decoration. So if he faces us now, oh, it just fell out. But sometimes they get properly wedged in there, and it's almost like they're wearing a flower behind their ear. Oh, hello. Well, even though we may have started them slightly earlier, you can see by their response now. I mean, this one's feeding right up to us, completely relaxed. He's got some form of a wound on his neck. I'm not sure exactly what that could be from, but it doesn't look too serious. This one over here I recognize, and he often does give us quite a lot of attitude, and he is a hardcore individual, at least that gaze he was giving us over there. Their look certainly does command a lot of respect, and oh, here we've got some ox peckers that have just popped in for breakfast. They're so beautiful. This is going to be a nice close shot for you, so good stuff. Okay, questions just come through from Arquette in Arkansas. And good morning, welcome on board. Arquette's asked a good question, and that is there a difference between the horns of the male and the female buffalo? And there certainly is. I'm hoping now, though, we get to see this one facing us for one last time. But essentially I'll describe it to you, and if it does hopefully turn its head to us, you'll notice that, there we go, that keratin helmet where they join in the center of the head, and that join, that part of the horns is called the boss, where they come together in the center. The male's is completely keratin, and it bulges fairly considerably, creating almost a rift in the center where the horns meet. Whereas females, in that central rift, won't have nearly as deep of a rift, and they'll also often have hair. So they don't have a large keratin boss or kind of helmet where the horns meet in the center. They've got less prominence and even often hair down that center rift that you can see on this individual now, even though it is looking at us through the bushes. So that is the main difference that you'd look for. It would be in the center of the horns, where the horns meet, where you would establish whether it's male or female. That's the best place to look. And I hope that made sense to you. If not, I can kind of try and re-explain it. But one last little attempt is that the males will have a large rift filled with keratin, no hair in the center of their head, and a large almost valley. Whereas the females, it'll almost be flat where the horns join, and often hair will be dispersed down that center parting. So there we've got a great shot, and you could almost imagine that he knows what we're saying. He's like, would you like me to look at you like this? Okay, one last time. Oh, wonderful. Toodle-doo. Those are go-away birds, grey go-away birds calling behind us. Not their regular quack call, but it's almost like they're warming up to it. Oh, now he's showing us his better half. Look at that. I wonder what it is that's exciting these go-away birds. They're quite far away. Well, there's two different bunches calling to one another. Well, thank you for showing us both the front and back of your very, very brightly coloured, well, back half at least. Oh, was that a little yawn?
Yeah.
I think it was. I cannot emphasize how much more pleasant it is out here on an overcast, cool day like this. We're thoroughly enjoying the weather. First, they stick to your clothes and your socks, so you can imagine walking through here just getting absolutely covered in these things. And it's a good way of seed dispersal, and that's why they've been so effective in spreading, well, one of the reasons. But they're no good, especially getting stuck on socks and different kind of material. They battle to latch onto this, but other kinds of material they really get stuck onto. So this is one of them. So an elephant pushed over this marula tree and it was blocking the road, so they had to come in with chainsaws to clear a path. Incredible strength the elephants have to be able to push over a tree of this size, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. But thankfully they do have the strength to do it, because if they didn't, the environment that we're driving through now would be a heavily wooded forest, and it's a necessity for elephants to actually break down and create a little bit of deforestation in order to make space for new growth, as well as to maintain a mixed kind of thornfelt habitat here. Just got a message through from Tina in Texas, and welcome on board. Tina made a comment saying that the sighting we've just had with those buffalo bulls down in that little wallow really reminded of when she was out in Africa and when she first fell in love with Africa. So I'm glad that brought back some fond memories, no doubt, of your time in Africa, and you should come back out, Tina. I wonder when last you were out here, because you did mention that it was many years ago that you were out here. So come back out and visit us here. It's a lot of fun, as you well know. And it is really interesting how certain sites and memories get rekindled by certain sightings that you have out here, and I can definitely relate to you, Tina, and glad that that specific sighting rekindled those memories and feelings you had of Africa. This little track's going to bring us out on the northwestern edge of the Djuma waterhole, just to keep you updated on where we're going and what's going on. There's a woodpecker that's just landed in this dead tree here, Brian. Okay, and then it just flew out of that dead tree. Hard to tell which one it was. They look very similar, the woodpeckers, unless it's of course the smallest of the woodpeckers, the cardinal woodpecker. That's considerably smaller and therefore quite easy to identify without binoculars or anything. The bird I tried to show you yesterday that I mentioned was called the Hlegabafazi, which means cackling woman in the local language, and that's due to their call, which sounds very much like a group of ladies, or men really, having a good old chuckle. It's a bird called the green wood hoopie. They're going to call now. We can't see them, but we'll just stop for this cackling call that you'll be able to hear. Oh. They're just getting warmed up. They should kick into full chorus shortly. Come on, greenwood hoopies. They still kind of just seem to be warming up their engines, but not wanting to commit to a full-blown cackling call. So that, combined with the fact that we can't see them, I think we should prosper forth. Got a question through from Donna in Ohio. Morning, Donna. Welcome. Donna's asking how many variety or species of woodpecker we have in South Africa or in Africa. I know in South Africa, in this area, we've got about 5 or 6, but in Africa as a whole, I don't know the answer. There'll be a lot more. There's some waterbuck, but I will get my bird book out to show you the woodpeckers we do get in this area of South Africa. Just going to roll forward and see if we can get a better view of these waterbuck. Oh, there we go. The lady is in the best spot. Now that she's facing us, you'll notice it's a very distinctively heart-shaped nostrils. And obviously the white ring on the bottom is also a very characteristic feature of the waterbuck. And a fairly shaggy coat, well, not shaggy, but long, furry coat relative to the other antelope out here, especially around the neck. Just to go back to the woodpecker question quickly, there's 4 woodpeckers that we get here, 3 of which are similar in size, the bearded, the golden-tailed and the bennets, and the cardinal slightly smaller. But this is just in this area of South Africa. This book is specifically for the Kruger National Park, which is quite handy, because you don't have too many other birds to get confused with if they don't occur here. But you can tell they're all fairly similar looking at a glance, and you really do need to get binoculars onto them to be able to distinguish who's who. Okay. Just over 5 minutes left, it looks like. So I do want to try and get down to the dam and see what's there, the Djuma Dam. Which is not far away, but I do just want to see if there's any sign of this elephant bull also in the area that was here. Another report from the Djuma Waterhole Cam, so thank you for that. beautiful male Nyala. There's another one further. Well, Alex is looking through the questions this morning. Is somebody... We've got a request from DJ Lepet asking for us with these Nyala. So beautiful, especially in the setting here in the riverbed. As he wants to get some screenshots, as I also would get some photographs. And Alex is also looking through the questions from this morning for a question on Nyala. And just so that you know, 4 questions. It's useful to ask questions relevant to what we're actually seeing, so that we can speak about something that we can see. And that's why Alex wouldn't have asked that question earlier, because we hadn't been looking at any Nyala earlier. So that's just something to bear in mind. If your questions aren't getting answered, that could well be the reason why. Well, that was a wonderful, wonderful sighting of those Nyala. And BJ, I hope you got the photos you were wanting to get, because you're not going to get too many better opportunities than that. Copy, thanks. Just in time, I think. The weather does appear to be closing in with a few darker, more ominous clouds, and this drizzly weather, even though it's not torrential, it does make filming tricky. So I'm glad we've got by this morning unaffected, and I hope it continues until the afternoon. But just a prior warning from the worst weatherman on the planet, myself, there could be rain this afternoon.
Weather reports did say rain.
Even the weather reports say rain. So thank you. And Brian does have a 7th sense, which allows him to also pick up weather patterns better than me. Okay, just 3 minutes left, and I don't like to rush around, but I would like to try and give you a visual of the Djuma waterhole and whatever is around there. But if we don't make it, apologies. Anyway, just to sum up the plans for Saturday, the Lions, if they are still around, which they all will be, the Lions will be prime candidates for some good quality viewing this evening. Hopefully they'll get active and show us some of their hunting skills. If not, there have been a lot of leopard tracks in the area, and we've got an idea of where they've been moving, so that's also useful to know. And possibly there'll be a few more guests coming in, and therefore more vehicles driving around this afternoon, which will also help greatly in finding other animals. But at this stage, really happy with the prospects for this afternoon, and really happy with how this morning's gone. It's been a nice relaxing morning out here, and we have seen some great sightings along the way. So glad you joined us, and really looking forward to this afternoon's drive already. So if you don't have any plans, we would love you to join us again then. And to Brian on camera, thanks for your good work as always. I gave you a tricky one there with the butterfly early on to start with, but you did well. And a big thank you also to Alex in the final control. Your work is really appreciated by us out here. And we'll just leave this last few seconds of drive for Brian to pan around and see what's happening here on the Djuma Dam. So enjoy, and until this afternoon, goodbye from myself and the team.